Hello and welcome to New Jersey Politics with Laura Jones. I am Laura Jones and we are so glad to have you here. Standing by, State Senator Robert Singer. He's a Republican representing the 30th Legislative District in New Jersey. We're going to be discussing recreational marijuana, a program to identify at-risk young people, as well as stiffer penalties for riots and disorderly conduct, and providing legal help for active duty members of the military. Recently, I sat down with advocate Rosemary Becky. She heads up Jersey First. It's a nonprofit aimed at giving all New Jerseyans a voice. First up, Assemblywoman Sadaf Jaffer, a Democrat who represents New Jersey's 16th legislative district, and that takes in parts of Somerset, Hunterdon, and Morris counties. She also sits on the Assembly Education Committee, and access to mental health resources for college students is something she is passionate about, both as a lawmaker and in her professional life. Assemblywoman, welcome to the show. It's so good to have you here.
It's good to be here. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to discuss mental health, especially for students. Now, we know in the last few years, they have not been easy on students. Between 2013 and 2021, there was a 135% increase in depression, 110% increase in anxiety amongst college students. So tell us a little bit about the legislation that you are sponsoring to help students with access to mental health.
Absolutely. So I actually have taught in the higher education context for more than 10 years. And so I know that mental health concerns have been an issue for years, but certainly the pandemic has brought them to the fore and has really been a challenging time for everyone. So the College Mental Health Services Grant Program will facilitate mental health support services at the state's public colleges and create a funding mechanism for staffing and program support at public colleges. And also we want to provide more transparency about the ratio of those students who require or request help and services and how many service providers there are, as well as more clarity about the wait times that students face when they are seeking an initial screening. And so this program, or this grant program, will fund trying to be innovative in addressing the issues that students are facing, whether that's outreach so that they know what services are available to them, whether that's contracting with other organizations to provide some of the services, whether that's investing in technology so that we can do more telehealth or phone services for students who are not able to access the services on campus.
You mentioned wait times a lot of times for those who are seeking treatment. I'm glad you mentioned that because that kind of leads to my next question and the barriers that students are running into when they're seeking treatment. Can you talk about what types we're talking about, those barriers?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first barrier is even seeking out the help and knowing that these services are available to you. And so I think having that transparency that these are the services that are provided, this is the ratio of students to providers, also makes it seem more acceptable and helps students understand that you're not the only one who is facing these issues and that there are a variety of services available to you. And also, frankly, it will be a way for the public and parents and students to be informed even before they decide where to go about the services that are offered. And, transparency provides that clarity, will help us address if there are issues in terms of wait times or staffing. All of this just helps us be more aware and know where we need to focus our resources.
Right, and especially when you're moving from when you're in the primary and high school, where you have parents who may be keeping a closer eye and other services that could be in place. You have students who are transitioning into adulthood and not necessarily knowing where to go, especially when they're moving on to the next phase of their to their lives. So of course people want to know how is this going to be paid for, and it is my understanding there are going to be grants that help fund this over a certain amount of time. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So, in speaking to advocates, they clarified that they didn't really want a one-time investment. They were looking for the grants to at least be a 3-year in terms of those grants so that we can see over time how these programs are working and the impact that they're having and measure that. So that's going to be the goal. And there's a lot of things that we're doing just in response to COVID right now, correct? But with this, we wanted it to be a long-term thing that's showing that this is an investment. It's a priority over the long term for students' mental health in our public colleges.
Right, and the issue just of mental health in general, there's still a stigma around it. And I was talking with somebody about, nurses a lot of times when you call out sick, you may be experiencing a mental anxiety or what have you, and that is very real. And some people feel that that is a weakness, or don't want to admit, or don't want to talk about it because there is that stigma around it. Is there anything in the program that is also looking to help with the education or other initiatives in this?
Yes, absolutely. So the grants can certainly be used for those initiatives. You know, it really would be up to the individual college to figure out what their needs are. But we do need to make it more acceptable. We do need to talk about it. And this is just one piece of the puzzle. You know, we as a legislature are working on a lot of legislation in terms of mental health resources for K through 12 students as well, making sure that, you know, those resources are available to them, that we're being creative and offering them, that we create a holistic environment in New Jersey where every person, and certainly especially our students, are able to access those mental health services that they need, and that we destigmatize that care.
Right, right. Because young people are dealing with things that, you and I, when we were their age, didn't necessarily have to deal with. Where is this legislation? Where's the bill now?
It passed the assembly, so now it's we're waiting to see it pass in the Senate and hopefully be signed into law.
What type of support, or what are you getting any pushback? Are you getting anybody saying no, this isn't going to happen, or a lot of people supporting? What is the overall response to this initiative?
I would say that the overall response has been very positive. I think generally across the board, everyone understands the stress that we've all been under, but certainly that students have been under. And so they want to invest in these programs. There's been just some questions about what types of information would be publicly available. And, we've worked with the institutions and with advocates to make sure that it's just providing a general sense of information about what resources are available. And we think that that's actually a good thing, because as we were talking about, there is way too much stigma. And I think that the more students and parents and the community is aware that people are availing themselves of these resources and that they're available, the more likely it is that people will seek out that help.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about why this bill, this initiative, mental health for college students, why is it important to you?
Yes, well, I liked college so much, I never left. I pursued a PhD. I stayed in academia. I've been teaching at the university level for more than 10 years. And, as you said, college is such a kind of a very dramatic change in people's lives. It's a time when they're transitioning into adulthood. Oftentimes they don't have that same familiar network that they might have. They're in a new environment that might be very stressful. So I've always tried to be there for my students, but there's only an extent to which any of us can be there, because we're not those mental health professionals, and we have to be able to refer them to those services and be as proactive about it as possible, because we want students to get their needs met before it's a crisis situation. And certainly if there is a crisis situation, be able to deal with those as well. Sure. Also, I was mayor of Montgomery Township during the pandemic. And I think ever since then, it's really been brought to the fore for me how important it is for us to provide mental health services to the public. And so, this is a passion of mine. And I think it makes sense, considering my professional background, that I would focus here in the college mental health space.
Right, right. I could have a whole nother conversation with you, because I have a daughter who's going off to college in the fall, and sometimes what I will see her dealing with is certain issues that she thinks she can deal with on her own, and she doesn't. Young people don't always talk about the things, or they don't want to go to mom and dad, especially they're an adult, they're 18. So getting them, to talk about it, or sometimes I'll wait until it is, a crisis, and it could have been avoided. So.
Right.
Yes, yes. So thank you so much, Assemblywoman, for taking the time to talk to us.
Great to be here. Thank you.
New Jersey State Senator Robert Singer is a Republican representing the 30th District in the New Jersey State Legislature. The district is made up of parts of Ocean and Monmouth counties. He's also a veteran of the Coast Guard Reserves, something that we're going to talk about in a little bit. Senator, welcome. So good to see you.
Thank you. So good to have me here. Appreciate it.
Well, recreational marijuana has been legal in New Jersey for a little bit more than a month now, and you've introduced a series of bills aimed at restricting what types of workers can use cannabis when they're off the clock. Can you talk a little bit about that? What workers are we talking about who would be impacted?
Well, for example, I chair the Lakewood MUA, which is Utility Authority, both sewer and water. We have licensed people in our plants that they drive our vehicles. And therefore, there's a risk factor if someone is smoking marijuana and driving our vehicles or in our treatment plants. We're talking about police departments. We're talking about first responders, whether it's firemen or first aiders. We're talking about hospital workers. We're talking about people that work in clinics that take blood tests and do other things in surgery centers. So there's a host of different businesses, including long-haul truck drivers, people operating heavy equipment, heavy machinery, people in public works, driving the garbage trucks, driving the heavy equipment. All these people are at risk if they don't have themselves prepared and ready to go to work. And therefore, what we want to do and want to see is that it's up to the employer to set the parameters of what is needed for that particular job. Secondly, on federal monies, for example, the CARES money and things came down to us at our Utilities Authority and other parts of the thing for police and fire. Any of that money being used with federal dollars has to adhere to federal regulations. So we want to make sure that people are safe, that people can do things in an intelligent way, and therefore not putting people at risk or themselves at risk.
Yeah, it sounds very common sense. Challenging, though, is how would it be enforceable?
Well, very simply, again, you set the parameters. If there's random drug testing in your facility, there's random drug testing. You don't have to change that. But keep in mind about one thing. If you set these parameters and God forbid there's an accident and a person is test positive for it and they were the cause of the accident, there's going to be ramification of them directly. In most other states, by the way, that have legalized recreational marijuana, they have so done the intelligent thing and make it up to the employer to set the regulations. For some reason in this state, we started that way. I'm not quite sure what happened. Again, there are many at-risk jobs. It's a responsibility of the person doing the job. I don't think any of us would want to go into a surgery center or to a hospital and have the person doing the surgery having just recently smoked marijuana. Nor would you want the first responder or the fire person or the policeman carrying a gun having recently just smoked marijuana. The problem we have with all this, there is no way to tell from any test whether they smoked this morning or a week ago. And that's the problem. So maybe the testing will get better. Maybe we'll be able to do that, and then we can talk about changing things. But as of now, employers have to set the regulations for the safety of both themselves and the public.
Now, is there anyone else who needs to be involved in the bill?
Well,
as far as I know, because you've mentioned, you want employers to set regulations. Is there anyone else who needs to be involved?
Well, I think the Department of Health has to be involved in it, as well as the Department of Labor. Again, we are not picking on individuals. There are many jobs that are not at risk, and that's fine. But when you're dealing with jobs at risk that are handling, as I said, heavy equipment, that are doing intense work on people, you want to make sure that the public is safe and the people doing the work are safe. So again.
Yeah. Just one other question on this. Where is the legislation? What's next for the bill? Where are they in committee? Where are they?
Well, it's waiting to go in committee. The problem is that the Senate president has said he really doesn't want to get into this. The problem is we're in it. And again, we're going to wait to something happens that people go, oh my goodness. Now, again, you still have the right as an employer to set the regulations. We just want to make sure it's clear legally. I'm hopefully that common sense will prevail, and we're going to see this statewide soon.
Yeah. Well, Senator, you're also a co-sponsor of a bill that, if passed, it will require the state attorney general to develop a program to assist schools in identifying at-risk young people or children who have been involved in a traumatic event. So can you explain a little bit about what is it when you say traumatic event? First of all, what are we talking about? What does traumatic event mean?
It's a madre of things that we can see. Many children have problems at home that come to to the school. Some are in foster care. Sometimes they're going through a bitter divorce. Sometimes they've lost a family member, especially with COVID. These are at-risk children. They have to be identified early on, and we have to get them help. If you get young people help early on, if you let the school psychologist get involved, if you let the school get involved in it, we can head off problems down the road. And that's something we want to do. We want to make sure that every child in this state has an opportunity to their fullest potential and helping them along those rough roads, those bumps in the roads that many of us have seen and had is important. For example, in my particular case, when my younger children were younger, their sister was in a terrorist bombing where 17 people died. She was hurt. There's some dramatic fallout from that. And identifying those issues and helping those young people in those issues goes a long way.
Now, if a child is identified at risk, what happens then? Is this part of I think you mentioned a school psychologist, a child study team? Do you know, or have you gotten that far in the legislation?
Well, the legislation is going to deal with that, identifying, letting the parents know what's going on, getting them involved. If they want to take the child to a private psychologist, they can. If they can't afford it or they need help, the school will provide it. It's really an inclusive thing, involving the parents, involving the school, to make sure that young person has every opportunity available to them to help them through those rough times. Too many times, these young people slip through the cracks. We don't want to see that happening. And especially, in this day and age where you see there are many single parents, in cases, many times it's women who are the head of household, need help. And we want to provide that help for them so that their children have every opportunity they can be successful.
I know, but there's so much that we see in the news, whether it be shootings or young people taking their own lives. So how do you hope at the bigger picture that this will make our community safer and our children in a better place?
Well, first of all, we have, people have got to understand that mental health is not a sentence. It is just a diagnosis that can be cured and can be worked on. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Parents should know to be able to reach out and say, we have a problem at home. Let the school know about it so that there's some ACT at in school, we can identify it. And parents have to have faith to know that the school is on the same side, making sure they help their children. Again, this is really I hate to say use the term, but it's true, kind of a village type of effort, from the school system to the parents working together hand in hand to make sure their children are safe, secure, and get through those troubled times.
Yeah, what kind of feedback have you received so far from?
Very positive. Again, the schools are more than willing to work on this. They want to head off problems, and parents are saying the same thing, especially with this COVID issue. Many families lost loved ones in this, and it was dramatic to the children. Many of them were kept home for all these months, and again, have a social issue and a behavioral issue. And the other thing about it is that parents are grappling with finances through this. There may be stress at home. We want to know that children will be taken care of through these tough times, and parents don't have to worry about where's the money coming from, and that the schools are 100% behind them with this.
Okay, all right. Well, certainly want to keep us updated on that because we're still grappling and seeing what those long-term effects of all of the pandemic have done. So many children struggling with depression and other issues. Shifting gears to another bill that you're co-sponsor. This is talking a little bit more about riot, disorderly conduct. It's enhancing penalties for public monument destruction. We saw a lot of this in 2020. So why are you tackling the issue?
We went ahead and we saw that young people came down. New Jersey Transit told Long Branch there were 1,200 young people on the train. Hundreds came into by car. Then there was another train load, another 800. You cannot sustain this large amount of people coming all at one time. Think about one thing. When you have thousands of young people coming to town, where do they use the bathrooms? Where do they throw their garbage? I mean, this just overwhelms a community. Where do they eat? Where do they do anything? It's just too overwhelming to a small town to handle these large crowds. So again, this is a safety factor. What ends up happening is garbage is thrown all over the place. They don't have enough bathrooms. They're using alleyways and else like that. People are getting pushed around. It's really a recipe for a problem.
Right,
what happened
right.
in Long Branch, you saw the local police couldn't handle it. They had to bring in from surrounding areas. They had to bring the sheriff's department, the prosecutor's office, the state police came down. There's a concern about safety of individuals, including the young people there, safety of the officers that are there, safety of people's properties and homes, the businesses that have to close up, they're concerned. They had to stop vehicular traffic. people got arrested. And again, the expense of loss of revenue to the town, the expense of the state police coming out and other police departments. There's a problem here.
Right.
And that's why we're going forward with this type of legislation, other legislation, saying to the Attorney General, help us financially if these people are called out. Who's going to pay for all these police? But going after the people that are promulgating these things, going after social media people that are doing this to create this havoc in these communities, and we're looking for, God forbid, a major problem. Only takes one foolish person to do one foolish thing to create something that we'll all be saying we're sorry for. We understand there's a problem. We are not saying that young people are not welcome down the shore, but you can't ask thousands of young people to come on these small communities. I don't think people understand that these aren't huge communities. When they get off the train, 1,200 people get off the train. Where do they go? What do they do? They're not.
Well, there's certainly a domino effect, and that is exactly what you're trying to do is look at that domino effect, not just about gathering. Senator Singer, we thank you so much for taking the time to talk about this and so many other topics. And it is the short summertime season, so we hope to have you back on again sometime soon.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share some of my thoughts with you and the people watching the station.
Absolutely. Tax policy lawyer and founder of nonprofit Jersey First, Rosemary Becky, joins us now. Becky, Rosemary, it's so good to see you.
Great to see you today.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about, let's start at the big picture. Let's start the biggest issues facing New Jerseyans. There are so many, and it seems that it just keeps growing and growing. But I'll let you take the ball.
Absolutely. And I think the biggest news is rising gas prices. It's just incredible. The national average this week is $4.87. I know I've stopped at a few gas stations that are above the $5 a gallon. It's pretty incredible. But that's, one of the biggest issues facing New Jerseyans. That, along with the inflation, it's really hurting our New Jersey families.
Yeah. Well, when the gas prices started to rise, you're thinking, all right, we've seen them go up before, because during COVID, man, they really dipped down. But now it just seems to be getting worse. So what do you think? The rising cost of gas, how is it going to be impacting the way people live their lives?
It's really going to impact what they do and the decisions that they make on a day-to-day basis. Again, when you're spending much more on gasoline, you're going to make different choices. You're going to have less household income available to do other things.
There's certainly a domino effect when it comes to the cost of gas, because you think twice about running out to your local ice cream store after dinner because, well, every little, it all starts to add up. So it's already hurting restaurants and retailers who are already struggling to begin with. Wouldn't you say that's the case?
Oh, absolutely. As New Jerseyans have less money in their pocket, it's going to affect everybody. It's going to affect our small businesses because people don't have as much money to spend. It's going to affect the entire supply chain, and it's really going to be impactful.
Yeah. Well, what do you think as far as room for the state government, for lawmakers, to step in and help consumers? Should they be? Is there room? How do they do that?
There is absolutely room for it. And the first place that I truly believe is, we are going to be facing a surplus for the first time in a very long time here in New Jersey. And we need to return those tax dollars back to the people. I think that would be an incredible way to help New Jerseyans.
Well, if people want to learn a little bit more about Jersey First, where can they go to find out more information and all that it is that you do and all of your advocacy?
The best place is to visit our website. It's jerseyfirst1st.org. So it's just Jersey and then 1st.org. We actually are launching our brand new website this week. And so we're super excited about that. But you can also find us on social media as well.
Yeah. And just final thoughts. What do you think you're going to, with Jersey First, what do you think your areas of focus are going to be this summer?
In this summer, we're really going to be talking a lot about the economy and the things that we need to be doing here in New Jersey to help New Jerseyans. I think that as you know, our state legislature looks at our budget and finishes that debate out in late June, we're certainly going to be advocating for sending some of that surplus back to New Jerseyans and really looking for ways to help families. These are difficult times.
And in New Jersey, it used to be one of the cheapest places. We're very expensive, but it used to be one of the cheapest places for gas. Now it's one of the most expensive, and you know, the cost of living, quality of life, it was already challenging to begin with. Now even more so. Final thoughts here?
Absolutely. And we can do better. We really can do better here in New Jersey. And there's a lot that can be done to rein in our spending and return monies to our families.
All right. Rosemary Becky of Jersey First, we thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show, and we look forward to having you back again.
Thank you.